Hey everyone, and welcome back to NexGen News. I'm Giovanna.
And I'm Oscar.
And this is NexGen News. We have quite the show for you today.
From cheese to robot art, volcanoes to confronting Asian American hate in our country, it's going to be an explosive and important show.
It sure is. Let's now head to our top story. Oscar, I think it's time for us to explore a trending hashtag, but of a more serious nature.
Giovanna, I agree. Recently, hashtag Stop Asian Hate has actually become more than just a trending hashtag. It developed into a movement in response to the rise in hate crimes against Asian Americans over the past year.
Let's take a deeper look. On March 16th, 2021, 8 people in Georgia were killed in a mass shooting, of which 6 were Asian women. This is the tipping point to bring national attention to a growing issue that the AAPI community has battled throughout the pandemic: racism and the rise of hate crimes. The statistics are staggering. According to the Center for the Study of Hate and Extremism at Cal State University San Bernardino, from 2019 to 2020, hate crimes in America's 16 largest cities decreased overall by 7%, but hate crimes against Asian Americans rose by 149%. This sparked a massive national response and social movement to support Asian Americans in the AAPI community. There have been rallies all across the country, including cities such as Los Angeles, San Francisco, New York, Seattle, Chicago, Atlanta, Pittsburgh, and Columbus, Ohio. The message is clear: the AAPI community needs our support.
To clarify, AAPI stands for Asian American and Pacific Islander. This includes individuals that identify with an ethnic group or nationality in East Asia, such as China, Japan, Korea, Tibet, and Taiwan.
Or South Asia, such as India, Pakistan, and Sri Lanka.
Right, and in Southeast Asia, you have Vietnam, Thailand, Cambodia, the Philippines, Indonesia, Singapore, Myanmar, and Malaysia.
And even the Pacific Islands, such as Samoa, Guam, and Fiji.
And don't forget about the Hawaiian Islands.
Definitely not.
Stop Asian Hate challenges the damage from issues such as the China virus rhetoric used by many, including former U.S. President Donald Trump. This language has been harmful to the AAPI community, casting blame for the coronavirus on Asian Americans, and according to advocates, has inflamed anti-Asian sentiment in the U.S. This movement also challenges the long-standing model minority myth, a stereotype rooted in the belief that Asian Americans, as compared to other minority groups, are polite, hardworking, and achieve a higher level of success. Many advocates and activists note how this stereotype contributes to the perception that Asian Americans are seen as all the same, at times feeling unseen in society.
As with all forms of racism, the most difficult part is trying to understand why this happens to a particular group. Asian families across the country are having important conversations, just like 40-year-old Korean American Tiffany Stuber and her 7-year-old daughter Olivia. Let's take a look.
Do you remember when we were talking about the shooting of the Asian women? How do you think, how did it make you feel? Would you remember when we talked about that?
Well, sad because I'm a little bit Asian.
You are. You're a lot of it Asian. She asked me why somebody would hurt people just because they were Asian. She said, because I'm Asian, so would somebody want to hurt me just because of the way that I look? And I said, sadly, I don't know. I was like, right now, because of the comments that were made about COVID and calling it a China flu, that a lot of people are looking at Asian people in a different way, and that mommy's heard things. People have said things to me about it, that it comes from China. We're not even Chinese. And I've expressed this to her, and she asked me why he called it the China flu.
Wow.
In addition to Tiffany Stuber, we've reached out to others to ask them how they feel as Asian Americans in the United States.
Honestly, a lot of times you just don't want to think about it. You want to go outside, keep your head down, and go about your business. When you do finally stop to process your thoughts, it's like being in middle school all over again. But now, instead of kids bullying you for your race, adults weaponize their language in a dangerous way to evoke racism. Many of us are looking at the situation with a new lens, but most importantly, we should not be afraid to share or forget the love and pride we have for our culture. As a Chinese American immigrant educator of similar demographics of recent victims of racial attacks, I am both saddened and disappointed. I am sad that innocent people are being attacked based solely on their ethnicity, and disappointed that groups of people are continuing to be targeted. Racism has always existed in this country, and the past several years it has escalated to the point that it cannot be ignored. Although there is an increase in attacks against the AAPI community, I'm not scared. I refuse to live in fear of others that may look different from me. I know that there are more kind and caring people in the world than the ones highlighted in the news, and I am hopeful that we will not just stand by and watch, but be proactive and take a stand to say that this is not okay. These are difficult conversations to have with kids. On one hand, you want to protect them, but on the other hand, you want them to know what's happening. As a parent, it's important to continue teaching your kids about their culture in spite of the injustices felt by the AAPI community, to raise children that are more aware and can carry on their cultural traditions.
I am Asian American. I enjoy celebrating Chinese New Year with my mama and yaya, and I love eating the adobo that my Lolo and Lola make for me. I am proud to be Asian American.
As you can see, we all need to come together to support the AAPI community and recognize the underlying racism they have faced and continue to face in this country. As a NexGen viewer, here are some ways you can start to address this issue.
First, ask questions to understand. What do you not understand? What would you like to know about the AAPI community? Second, research to understand. How have Asian Americans been treated in the United States throughout history? Look at issues such as the Chinese Exclusion Act or Japanese internment during World War II.
Thirdly, practice empathy to understand and put yourself in someone else's shoes. How do you think your AAPI peers are feeling at this time? How can you be more aware of their feelings and situation? Lastly, here's a word from NexGen News co-founder Michelle McGuire.
Hi friends, my name is Michelle McGuire and I'm one of the co-founders of NexGen News. As the daughter of a Vietnamese immigrant and a proud Asian American, I'm woefully disheartened to see the ways that racism and hate have continued to take root in our community. We cherish our unique cultures, our identity, and especially our elders. Like many others, I'm struggling to see this play out in society, and I am struggling to reflect on how this has impacted myself personally. As an individual, I value openness, tolerance, and the right for all of us to be treated in a just, fair, and equitable way. Racism takes that away from us. As a company, NexGen News values the power of our platform to bring these issues to light, to have students think critically about what they can do to create positive change and impact. For more information, resources, and ways to support the Asian American community, head to stopaapihate.org.
So when my mom was growing up, she didn't have any characters in her books that looked like her. Now my mom fills up me and my brother's library with a bunch of books written by Asian Americans, like The Ugly Vegetables by Grace Lin, Role Models Who Look Like Me, Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders Who Made History by Jasmine Cho, We Are Inspiring, the stories of 32 inspirational Asian American women, The Name Jar, which is actually one of my favorite books, and Auntie Yang's Great Soybean Picnic, which we haven't read yet, but we are going to read. All these stories I read inspired me to write a story of my own called Hot Pot Christmas.
Hey Oscar, check out this video.
Are those people playing volleyball in front of a volcano? That can't be real.
Oh, but it is. Let me tell you more. A volcano on the Reykjanes Peninsula in Iceland began erupting in mid-March and hasn't stopped since. Tourists have flocked to come see this natural wonder, with more than 10,000 visitors in the first few days after the eruption began. But don't get too close. This volcano is spewing lava at a rate of 5 to 10 cubic meters per second. According to volcanology professor Thordsson from the University of Iceland, the volcano could stop erupting tomorrow, or it could keep going for years.
That's crazy! How could it keep erupting for years? I made a homemade volcano once for a science fair, and it only erupted for like 2 minutes. It was the worst because Billy Jenkins' volcano kept going for the whole time, and he won first place at the science fair. Billy Jenkins.
Sorry about the science fair, Oscar, but homemade volcanoes are not the real thing.
I guess so, but how can they erupt for years?
That's a great question. I think it's time to head to our favorite science nerd, Trenton, to learn more about volcanoes in this week's edition of NexGen Science.
Hey NexGen viewers, Trenton here for an explosive new edition of NexGen Science. Today, we're talking volcanoes, one of Earth's natural wonders. If you're like Oscar and Giovanna, you might be wondering, how do volcanoes erupt? Well, let's take another look at the volcano in Iceland and then I'll explain. Pretty amazing, right? But how is this hot lava pouring out of the Earth? Well, let's venture down into the Earth to unpack this phenomenon. The Earth is like an onion, or a cake. It has many layers. The outermost rocky layer is the layer that we live on and is called the lithosphere, which includes the Earth's crust and upper mantle. Then there's the mantle, which includes the upper mantle and the lower mantle. When you go a little deeper, you get to the outer liquid iron core, and finally, the inner solid iron core. To understand how volcanoes erupt, we need to focus on the mantle. The mantle makes up about 84% of the Earth's volume and is made up of rocks rich in magnesium and iron. Intense heat and pressure in the mantle causes these rocks to turn to liquid magma and rise. Then, when it cools, it solidifies and sinks back down towards the core. The liquid magma rises because the liquid has less mass than solid rocks, causing it to rise to the surface. Now, this sinking and rising process happens all the time under the Earth's crust without us even knowing, and causes the tectonic plates under the Earth's surface to move. Which is how earthquakes happen, but that's a whole other phenomenon for another time. So for now, let's stick to volcanoes. Back to the mantle. When this hot liquid magma rises above the solid rock and pushes through the Earth's crust through a fissure or hole, volcanoes erupt. Once magma has erupted, it is called lava, and it is hot, hot, hot. As soon as the lava hits the air, it cools and begins to harden and return back to its solid rock form. Pretty cool, right? Well, I guess it's actually pretty hot. But anyways, let's now apply this process to the volcano that's currently erupting in Iceland. The lava you see here is from liquid magma coming from the mantle. It's pushed through the Earth's crust here and here. Notice as the lava flows down and touches the air, it doesn't stay in that red hot lava form. That's because it begins to cool and solidify back into rock. So, going back to Oscar's original question, how can a volcano erupt for years? Well, as long as the magma continues to push through the Earth's crust in this location, the volcano will continue to erupt. If the magma in the mantle cools or solidifies, or the opening where the magma is coming out gets blocked or closes, then the eruption will stop.
Whoa, thanks, Trenton. That was a real deep explanation.
Yes, thanks, Trenton. So I guess if I want to win the science fair next year, I need to find a way to keep the liquid magma pushing through the surface. I'm coming for you, Billy Jenkins. Hey, Giovanna, how about a game?
All right, what's it gonna be?
Categories.
Okay, let's go.
Category is cheeses. Go.
Cheddar,
Mozzarella.
Parmesan,
Gouda.
Munster.
Blue.
Wait, why are we taking a game break?
So I could tell you and the viewers about the cheese spike in France during the pandemic, of course.
Oh, right. Obviously.
During the COVID-19 lockdowns that took place all around the world, eating habits changed for a majority of households. Like many countries, people were left to prepare meals at home rather than dining out. Well, the people of France were not going to let their national love for the old fromage, that's cheese in French, waver. And sales of cheese increased by 8%, compared to only 2% the previous year. Mozzarella and Italian cheese increased by a whopping 21%. And who can blame them? Mozzarella sticks will get you out of any hunger jam. Let's now hear from the president of France's local cheese association.
The French maintained and even compensated in a way for the lack of sales in restaurants by their high consumption, higher than usual. For example, we see that for goat cheese, consumption is up by 32%. Camembert is up 2%. Comté is up 8%.
I thought Wisconsin liked their cheese, but the French are the real cheeseheads.
They sure are, but France isn't the only country that shifted eating habits during the pandemic. Let's take a quick trip around the globe to show us some differences. In Denmark, a study showed that homemade pastry consumption has increased by about 38%, and in Brazil, sausage sales have ticked up by around 15%. South Korea and Thailand food delivery is up 42%, and in Mexico, they are buying 150% more canned fish like tuna and sardines. The Philippines' sales of fresh fruit and vegetables was up a whopping 444%. Well done to the Philippines for making healthy choices. Right here in the U.S., cookie sales have seen a triumphant increase of 147% in sales during the pandemic because we Americans love getting our snack on. All around the world, the COVID pandemic has affected the way we are buying and consuming food. Only time will tell if these were a sign of the times or if people have made permanent changes to the way they eat moving into the future. Hey, Giovanna, let's play a game.
Another game? All right, what's the game?
It's called Name the Artist. I'm gonna show you a work of art, and you need to name the artist that painted it.
I love art. I'm ready.
Okay, who painted this piece of art?
Easy. That's a Picasso painting.
Correct. How about this one?
I'd recognize that one anywhere. It's Starry Night by Vincent van Gogh.
That's correct. You're on a roll. Okay, last one.
Huh. I don't recognize that one. Who's the artist?
This is digital artwork by Sophia, the humanoid robot. Meet Sophia, the humanoid robot. Perhaps you've seen her before. Hanson Robotics debuted her back in 2016. Sophia can walk, talk, and apparently paint. Welcome to Sophia's art studio. She is collaborating with Italian artist Andrea Bonochetto to create digital paintings. And this partnership is the first human-AI art collaboration ever. Sophia is painting entirely on her own, but is using Bonochetto's style of art as inspiration for her work. Let's now hear from the robotic artist herself, Sophia, and Italian artist Andrea Bonochetto.
I am painting my feelings, inspired by people. I generate my own art with neural nets and symbolic AI, and then some of these works I paint with my own hands. And then I study the results of these algorithms to generate more new artworks. Andrea's works are so inspiring. It's a human-AI collaboration.
So far, all of the pieces...
What we wanted to really do was to make a statement in the art world and even in the technology world of opening up like a new road where AI, robots, and humans collaborate, both, enhancing each other,
The evolution of Sophia from emerging as an artwork herself, generating artwork that then was later inspired by Andrea Bonochetto's artwork through many iterations of art that then fueled more art, resulting in this purely digital work, very rich, fueled by art history, her own works, Andrea's work, and this is the main piece that we put on the Nifty drop.
Wow. Well, I sure know the artist that painted that piece now. Pretty amazing. But what was all that talk about algorithms and something about a Nifty drop?
Yes. NFTs have taken the art world by storm. Buckle up as I try to explain this one. NFTs, also known as non-fungible tokens, are digital tokens that can represent digital files such as art, audio, video, and other forms of creative work. They are essentially computer files combined with proof of ownership and authenticity, kind of like a deed to a house. When you buy a house, you have proof of ownership that the house is yours. Same thing with NFTs. You have proof that you own the file. But instead of a physical deed for a house, NFTs, like cryptocurrencies, such as Bitcoin, exist on a blockchain. I could spend hours talking about blockchain, but to put it simply, a blockchain is like a database that collects information and records transactions in a way that makes it difficult or impossible to hack. When someone buys NFTs, the transaction is recorded on blockchain to provide proof of ownership, like a digital deed. In this case, Sophia's digital art is tied to an NFT and was recently auctioned off to the highest bidder for nearly $700,000. Yes, you heard me right. Someone paid almost $700,000 to own Sophia's digital painting.
$700,000 for a digital file? Are they crazy?
Well, possibly. But most NFT purchases are really investments. Whoever bought Sophia's digital painting is hoping it will go up in value, and then they can sell their NFT to the higher bidder. It's kind of like the NBA's Top Shot. They are auctioning off NBA video clips as NFTs, so people can own that moment from basketball. So far, one of the highest sales was LeBron James's Cosmic Dunk for $208,000.
Well, I guess that's better than $700,000 for Sophia's painting, but the whole thing still seems a bit ridiculous to me.
To me, it sounds like an opportunity. What can I sell as an NFT? Perfect. The bidding will start at $100,000. Any takers?
Well, NexGen viewers, that about wraps up our show for today.
We hoped you learned something new about volcanoes, cheese, and NFTs.
Yes, and remember, we all need to do our part to support #StopAsianHate. Be sure to check out our website for more resources. For now, I'm Giovanna.
And I'm Oscar.
And we are NexGen News.
Bringing news to the next generation.